I've been using Notion daily for over 4 years to manage my entire life. And in that time, I've watched hundreds of YouTube videos, used tons and tons of templates, and learned pretty much everything there is to know about the app. So give me 30 minutes of your time and I'll teach you everything you need to know. Notion is an incredibly powerful tool, and you can use it to manage literally your entire life and build aesthetic templates like this one. But it can often feel very overwhelming and most people have no idea where to start. Well, if that sounds like you, in the next 30 minutes, I'll teach you how to become a Notion expert and how to use all the essential features so you can build templates of your own. Whether you're a complete beginner or a regular Notion user looking to level up your skills, you've come to the right place. We're gonna go from a complete blank workspace when you first download the app to building our own simple template like this. This is episode 1 of the Using Notion to Organize Your Life series. You can follow along with the entire tutorial or skip around using the timestamps below. But before we get started, if you're new here, I'm Ryan. I'm a software engineer based in Boston, and on this channel, we explore how to live more optimized, happier, and healthier lives. Okay, let's get into the video. Click the link in the description and download Notion to get started. When you first open it, it's gonna ask you a couple questions. First, it's gonna ask how you want to use Notion, just to help customize your experience. Now, you can select whatever you want, but I'm gonna go ahead and select for personal life. Next, it's gonna ask whether you wanna use Notion on your own or with others. I'm gonna select on my own. And then it's gonna ask you to select what's on your mind, aka what are some things you wanna use Notion for. You can kind of select whatever you want here. It's just gonna create some basic templates for you based on what you select. Okay, now we're in Notion. You can see on the left, some of the templates that automatically created for us based on what we selected, as well as the getting started guide. You can kind of ignore all of this stuff. We're just gonna kind of do our own thing. Now I'm gonna pull up my Notion so we can follow along together. This over here is called your sidebar. And you may notice a couple different areas. You have private, which are where all your private pages are stored. You have your favorites, and we'll get into that later, but when you star a page, it'll show up in your favorites. And then you have your shared pages, which are pages that are shared with others, which we'll also get into later. In the top left here, you have your workspace. And this is where all of your pages and templates and everything is stored. And you can actually create multiple workspaces if you want to separate maybe your work and your school and everything without having it be all in the same workspace. But you can also do this using pages. So most of the time, people just use one workspace. Now we're going to come over here right next to our workspace and click Create a New Page. You can also do this by going in your private and clicking plus to create a new page. Either way. Now I like to hide the sidebar when I work. It just makes me a little more focused and less distracted, and it just looks better. So I'm just going to go ahead and close this sidebar, but you can keep this open if you prefer. Now, when you go ahead and create a new page, it's going to ask for you to name it. We're going to go ahead and name this Your Name's Notion. And we're going to click here to add an icon. We're going to use the Notion logo, and then we're going to add a cover photo. Click Change Cover. You can look through this gallery. You can upload your own, use a link, or what I like to do is use Unsplash, which is just a bunch of different images that are on this website called Unsplash. You can use them. Boom, this is already looking a lot better. Now, this is where most people get overwhelmed. What do you do now, right? Now, before we continue, let's actually talk about what exactly Notion is. Think of Notion as a set of building blocks to make your life easier. Think Lego bricks, and you can put these bricks together in any way to create amazing things. It's a note-taking app, a to-do list, a calendar, and Google Drive, all in one. And you can use it to create pretty much anything, like databases, public websites, knowledge stores, project management systems, notes, and literally anything else that your mind can dream up in the form of beautiful templates. Not only that, you can download pre-made templates on the marketplace or online and edit and use them in any way you want. Now, it can feel very overwhelming and complicated, especially when you first are getting started. But let me try to make it feel a little more simple. The true key to Notion is that everything is a block. Think of it as a Lego brick. You put these bricks together in different ways to create pages and create templates. So these blocks go together to build things. Let me show you what I mean. So when you create a new page, the default block is text. So you just start typing, right? Now if I click enter a few times to create a few blank blocks. So as I mentioned, everything in Notion is a block, and you can actually drag these blocks around, transform them into other blocks, and do pretty much anything with them. So this basic text I just created is its own block. So I can drag this around to all these other blank blocks that I created. As you can see, I can't drag them any lower because you need a blank block to exist for it to be dragged there. Or I can click these dots and click turn into. This will allow me to turn it into any other block. So let's get into what the basic blocks are. Now, to see all of the blocks, you can type /. This will bring up a command tab page with all of the blocks. Now you can scroll through them. You can see up here, these are all the basic blocks. you scroll down, you get to some media and some more advanced blocks like databases and more. Or you can just start typing and a block will come up if it exists with that name. So let's go through each of the basic blocks. So as we mentioned before, text, this is just what we had before, basic text. We have heading, which is just bigger text. Heading 2, which is just a smaller heading. And as you would expect, heading 3 is an even smaller heading. A bulleted list, which is much like it sounds, a bulleted list. Press enter, right? A numbered list, this one also pretty obvious. To-do list also. All right, you can check these off. That's what a to-do list is. A toggle list, which allows you to hide things under a toggle. Click under here and you can see it's empty. But if I was to drag these 3 blocks under here, which included the blank block, you'd see the blank block and the 2 to-do list blocks, right? So each one of these things that I've created is its own block. You can see I'm dragging to highlight them, select them, but literally each one of these is its own individual block. So right now I have a group of a bunch of blocks selected. This is a group of 3. This is a group of 5. So these are all blocks, right? We'll talk about a page in a second. This is one of the most important blocks. A call out, which essentially just makes something stand out. We have quote, just adds a line next to the page, but you can be like, I don't know, whatever you wanna, right, blah, 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 it's a quote. We have a simple table, which is just looks like this. Probably won't use that one very much. And then we have a divider as well as a link to page, which we'll also talk about in a second. But divider is just this big line that divides things. So now we have a bunch of the basic blocks in our page and we've gone through each of them except for a page, right? So as I mentioned before, blocks can be selected, dragged and moved around freely, can be placed under other blocks, can be put literally anywhere, and they can be transformed into any other block. Select this one, turn it into a bulleted list. Select these 2, turn this into a to-do list, right? So you can turn any block into any other block. Now, let's talk about pages. Let me just clean this up a little bit. Okay, right? So as you see, I just selected everything and pressed delete, and that just deleted all the blocks. So type slash and type page, or you can just scroll down through the basic blocks and find page. And this will create a new page within our current page, right? So this is a subpage. And if you go up here to the top, these are what you call breadcrumbs. And this is how you got to the current page. So if we click up here, we get back to our main page. Click back here, you can see the breadcrumbs are updating. So if we were to create another page, within this page, you can see the breadcrumbs are updating. You can click back up here, you can navigate using these breadcrumbs. And these also appear in the sidebar. So we open up Ryan's Notion, you can click this caret to expand, and you can see all the pages within a page. Okay. Those are breadcrumbs. And this is what a page is. I mean, we've been doing everything in this page called Ryan's Notion, right? A page is just made up of a bunch of blocks. So we had all those blocks in my Notion page. We can click here in this subpage and add a bunch of blocks, right? It's basically just a place where a bunch of blocks are stored, right? And it's a way to organize them, to keep them all in one spot. So we can do the same within this subpage. That's what a page is. You can also turn a page into any other block. So if you turn this into a to-do list and then see everything else under it just kind of spits out blankly, you're really not going to transform a page into any other blocks, but you can if you want to. Okay, so we have this page called subpage. Let's say within our new page, we want to add a link to subpage. We have our last basic block, which is a link to an existing page. Click this. We can add a link to, let's say we want to add a link to our main page. Boom. So now we have a link to that main page. So click that and it's a circle. Get back to that. So that's the last basic block. And now we've covered all of the basic blocks. Now let's get into one of the more advanced blocks called a database. And this is probably the most important block in Notion. And you're going to be using this one a lot. Type slash, you can scroll down or you can just type. I'm going to go past the media ones for now. And we're going to go to database. So we're just going to go ahead and create a basic database. These are all just different views, which we'll talk about in a minute. But you have a couple options when you go to create it. So you can create it inline, which adds it to this page, or you can create it as its own full subpage. So if we did this, we would create a new page. You can use the breadcrumbs to get back up. We're gonna actually just go ahead and create it inline. And they also have this other option to create a linked database, linked view of a database. This is similar to when we just created that linked view of a page. If we had a database that already existed and we wanted to just create a database that was a copy of that, we could do that. So I'll show you more about that later. But just so you know. Okay, let's create this inline. and we're going to start building our template. So we're going to click New Table here. If you had an existing database that you wanted to create a linked view of, you would just select that here. We're going to create a new table. We're going to go ahead and name this Projects. Now, it's best practice to add a hashtag before the name of your database, just so it's easy to search through your databases and to see whether a page is within either a database or a page. You'll see what I mean later, but just trust me, it's the best practice to add a hashtag before the name. And then I'm going to click these three dots here and hide the title. The best way to think of a database is as a notebook. It has a collection of pages. Think of a database as a notebook. So it has a bunch of pages inside of it, and it uses properties to organize all these pages into a single structure. I'll show you more what I mean with examples. So this is a very basic database right here, with the only property being name. So if we were to create a new page, open it, you can see literally the only property is the name. Basically has no properties. We can click this button here to add a new property, or we can click this plus right here. So since we're creating a project database, what's something that's important for projects, right? That's what we want to consider. But first, let's talk about some of the different types of properties that you can create. You can create a text property, a number property, a select, a multi-select, statuses. Most of these are pretty self-explanatory. Checkbox, right? You can name this like done, right? So you can add any of these properties. URL, email, phone, formula that performs calculations automatically for you. Relation, which we'll talk about later, created time, created by, right? So there's all these different properties that you can add. So for a project, let's go ahead and add a select, right? We're going to call this status. So when you're working on a project, it's either going to be an active project, future project, or completed project. Right, so I'm just typing to add these options to the status. Let's just make these colors different. Look at the three dots next to them to change the colors. And then let's drag future into above active so it's in the right order. Okay, so we've added a property, a select property, and added some options to select, as well as naming its status. Now, what else might a project contain? Maybe a start date? Oh, look, it already suggested a start date. But if it didn't suggest that, we would just click date right here, name this start date, press enter, boom. And then start date would be one of the properties, and we can just drag it to where we want it to be shown. And then maybe end date, and showing the end date here automatically. So just click that, boom, start date, end date, and priority, right? That's another select, boom. So priority, start date, end date, status, right? So film Notion video, one of my projects. This is high priority, and the start date is right now today, and the end date is today. So this is active. Boom, just like that, we've created our project's database and added a row or a page. So you can see this is just like a normal page. You can click here to open, and you can add anything within here. It's literally just a page, right? You can see the scroll bar looks a little ugly, and this page isn't exactly displaying this amazingly. So maybe we wanted to take up the full page. This is one of the options you can do with these three dots. I'll talk about these other options later. But we're just gonna click on these three dots and click full width, right? So now this database takes up, or this whole page takes up the full width of a monitor. Let's go ahead and add some other projects while we're in here. Project 2, this is a medium priority. Start date is tomorrow. We want it to end here. And this is a future project. Project 3, this is low priority. Start date here, end date here, and this is future as well. And then maybe we'll add one that we finished. This is medium, it's here, and the end date was here. This is completed. Okay, now we have some rows within our database. Now we can use these properties to sort, filter, or search through the database. So let me show you what I mean. Databases have something called views. When you click here, you can edit the view, or you can click here to create a new view. So right now we're in a basic table view, which is the default when you create a new database. Let's click this plus. Let's go ahead and go with a board view. This will automatically create this board view based on where the project falls in the select or the status, right? We can change that way that this looks. So the layout is board, the properties shown are the name. Maybe we want to show the priority, the end date, and the start date, but we want to show the start date first. So click there, right? Now this is starting to look a little better. We can filter it to only show projects that are high, medium priority, right? Or we can filter it to show the start date is this week, right? So you can filter it based on these properties that we have created. But we're gonna go ahead and not have any filters for now, or you can sort it based on any of the properties as well. Or you can group it, subgroup it, all these different options, right? We're gonna go ahead and create different views for the future, active, and completed projects. I prefer the list view. These are all the options. You can play around with these if you want to look through each. We're gonna go ahead and go with the list view. Now this looks really ugly. Let's hide the database title and let's play around with this view. Click here, click edit view. We're gonna show the name, status, start date, end date, priority. Boom. Starting to look a little better. Still looks a little messy. We can hide status. Okay, that looks a little better. And then let's filter it to only show active projects, right? And we don't need to sort it. Oh, we can sort it by start date, ascending start date. Okay. I guess we'd want to do end it. Okay. Boom. Now let's name this active projects. Boom. We're going to drag this view over here. Now you can see this is literally only showing the active projects. Now you can see there's no icon, so this page looks a little bit ugly. If we were to add an icon, we could clean this up, make it look a little more pretty. Boom. Film, Notion, video. Go ahead and delete this board view and this table view. We don't need these anymore. And we're going to go ahead and duplicate this twice. So we can create one for future projects where the filter is future, and we're going to do the same here for completed. Boom, just like that, we have 3 different views. Now if we wanted to add icons here, we could go in here, add icons to each view, click edit view, click here, add an icon. Okay, boom, future, active, completed projects. Now this is starting to look pretty good, right? But maybe we want to change it so when you create a new page, by default it has an icon or it has some properties automatically filled out for you. So let's drag this to change the order of these. Start date, yeah, okay. So if we wanted to create defaults, we can go over here. Click this button here and click new template. Now templates allow you to automatically create pages with certain properties filled out automatically. So if we click new template, we can add new future project, future, priority, default, let's do medium. Start date would be the date that it's created, right? And we don't want to have a default for the end date, we want to fill that out automatically, right? And maybe we want to add a database in here for things that go along with this project. Boom, now we have a template. And if we were to create a new project, we could literally just click down here and click new future project, and it would create this automatically for us based on the template that we just created. Now we could create a few more for active and completed, but we're going to go ahead and just set this as the default right now. Only on future project views. If we go here and create one, it'll create a blank one. If we go to future projects and create one, it'll create a new future project with those defaults filled out for us. Now, let's say we have a recurring project that we need to create every week. That's like a report. Status is active. Priority is high. Start date is that day. And the due date is that day, right? We need to do this every Friday, right? So let's click here, click on weekly report. You can also add any details about the report within the page if we needed to. Let's add an icon, a pen. Okay, and then if we click this, click weekly report, it'll automatically create that weekly report for us. But let's say we don't want to do that manually, but we need to do this every week. We can click right here and click repeat weekly, right? Starting on Fridays. Let's do one every Friday. We'll create it Thursday at midnight, right? So then I'll be there on Friday. Boom, save. Every Thursday at midnight, it'll automatically create this weekly report project for us, and it'll be an active project. So when we wake up in the morning, we look at our active projects, we say, oh, we have this weekly report, as well as a Notion video. Both are due today, both are high priority. So you can see why this gets really powerful really fast. And there's a bunch of other different views you can play around with, a bunch of different properties you can add. Something I want to note, when you create new views, it doesn't actually change the underlying data at all. It just changes the way it's displayed. So all this data is still all within the same database, it just changes the way you see it. Now, let's say I wanted to display this database within another page that I had. As I mentioned before, with linked databases, you can type /database, you can click linked view of database, and then select the project's database. And you can choose some of the views if you wanted them to be displayed here or create new ones. But that would be the exact same database as the one up here. So you can display the same database in multiple places. Now, as I mentioned before, if we created a new weekly project and then open this page, you can see the table that we created in the template is automatically created as part of this page. So you can just add a bunch of things to these templates and make them very useful. And then when you create a new one, it'll automatically generate all of it for you. You can also go into your database settings and play around with them, customize it. You can add something called sub items, which essentially add toggles to each item in the database. It allows you to put sub items under it. You can add dependencies. You can add tasks, turn it into a task database. I'm not going to do this stuff, but you can play around with this as well. You can adjust the load limit, how many pages load at once. You can add automations, which is a paid feature. Whenever something happens, do something else. You can group them, sort them, filter them, all these different options, as well as lock the database so nothing can be added. Now that we have our project database created, let's go ahead and create another database for different areas of our life. So we can start to build a dashboard to manage our entire life with. Let's do /database inline and do a new table. Name this areas. So once again, hide the database title. Now, this looks pretty ugly having one on top of the other, right? So what can we do to actually make this look a little more aesthetic? Well, we could take this and drag it next to our other database. So now they're displayed side by side. So there's also this command called /columns, and it allows you to create columns within that block. So I click /create 5 columns. You can see that we'll now have 5 columns within this page. So I drag and select 5 different blank blocks. We have our 2 automatically created by dragging that block. Okay, so let's go ahead and create areas. We're going to do gallery. Now, before we add any properties, let's add a new page. Maybe one of the areas of our life is finance. Let's go ahead and add an icon, cover photo. Boom. Now in the gallery, you can edit the view so it displays page cover, or we can have it display the page content, just the size. It's have to be small. Okay, now I've added some areas in this gallery view with cover photos, finance, relationship, work. These are just some example ones. Now you could add any properties you want to the areas database, but I'm just going to go ahead and keep this blank for now, because what I like to do with the areas of my life is store things in here that are relevant to that area. So let's say I want to write down all of the credit cards I have. I could go in the finance page, /page, and write credit cards I own, right? Something like that, and just add a bulleted list. Write out all the credit cards I own. Then over time, these areas start to be filled with things that are relevant to that area of your life. So let me show you what this looks like in mine. So if I open up my finances, this is what my Life OS looks like right now. If I was to open up my finance page, you could see all the things that go along with my finance, or personal growth, or minimalist home. These are all the pillars or areas of my life. Over time, you can start to see why this gets really useful. So you can pretty much customize this however you want. Now, what else might we want in a page that we're using to manage our life? Well, let's go ahead and add a divider under these so we can make this look a little more visually appealing. And then maybe let's add a to-do list for the week. Start with a heading. All right, so let's add this week at a glance. Let's do /columns. The most you can do at once is 5. So do 5, add heading 3, Monday, and then add /to-do list. Boom. Copy this, go here. Just like that, we have our week at a glance. Let's add another divider under this so it looks a little more aesthetic. Boom. Just like that, we have what's starting to look like a dashboard, right? We have our Notion with our projects, our areas of our life, and our to-do list for the week. Now, maybe we want to make this more advanced and we want to relate our projects to our areas or something like that. There's a feature in databases called relations that allow you to link an existing database to another database, right? We can make it two-way so it appears on areas as well. If we make it two-way, it's also going to appear in areas, related projects. Boom. We're going to name this related areas. So now when we add this, we can add a related area to any project or multiple, and then we could add that to the display. so it shows the related areas. Okay, so that's relations within a database. Now, maybe this is looking a little boring and we want to add some fun to this. There's blocks called media blocks. And as I mentioned before, it's images, video, audio, code, a file, a web bookmark. This is just essentially a way to make your Notion more fun. So if we did a /image, get embedded with a link. Let me actually find a link to a GIF, copy the link, go back to Notion, paste it, embed it. Just like that, we have a forest. Now we've made it a little more fun. You can add any image here, you can resize it, you can do whatever you want. You can make things just look more aesthetic. You can embed images, GIFs, videos, audio files, video files. You can embed anything you want. Just type / and go. Scroll down to media. Code, if you wanted to, just as an aesthetic way to add code. It'll just show up here. You can select the language. Just a way to make it more aesthetic. Now let's get into some of the more advanced blocks. So breadcrumbs, when you're on a subpage, you can see your breadcrumbs at the top. You type /breadcrumbs, it'll just add the breadcrumbs to your page. You're not going to do this on your main page because there's no breadcrumbs. It'll just display the name of the page. But if you're on a subpage and you want the breadcrumbs to be displayed so you can easily navigate between them, you can just do /breadcrumbs and add that. You can add an image, which can also be dragged and move around, just like any other block. Audio, any file, and it'll just add as a file right on the page. You can add equations formatted. You can add a button, which will automatically do things when you click on them. When this button is clicked, do this action. So insert blocks, below button, hello. So yeah, you can just use buttons to do automations for you. There's a bunch of different options for different actions. Use buttons however you want, but this button just writes hello. You can add a toggle heading, which is just a toggle with a heading above it. Different sizes of the text. As I mentioned before, 2 columns, 3 columns, 4 columns, 5 columns to split the page into columns. And a mermaid diagram, which will run code for you and display the diagram. So the custom AI block, this is actually a paid feature, but you can generate content from any instruction for an AI. You can mention someone, mention a page, add a data reminder, emoji, an inline equation. As I mentioned, you can embed things. And then these are all of the integrations with different apps. So to see if there's an integration with the app that you want to use, you can just type / and type the name of the app. So it's like Slack integration, there's Google Drive, Google Maps. And by clicking on each, you can see what integration exists with that app. So like with Google Drive, you can add previews of files. Or with Maps, you can embed Google Map. A bunch of different integrations exist within Notion for different apps. Okay, I updated this embed to be a lo-fi grill to make it a little more aesthetic. Now we understand advanced blocks and basic blocks and structuring, all these different features. But the main thing about Notion is that it's designed to get the thoughts out of your head and onto a page. And then once they're there, you can rearrange, organize, optimize, and style them in any way you want. Like with text, you can highlight the text and change it to bold it, italicize it, underline, strike through, all these different things that you can do with the text. Change the color, the background color, all these different things to make it more aesthetic. So like with our page, say we want to make these databases more aesthetic, we can just drag them into callouts, right? And this will help separate it a little bit more. Right? You can see this is already starting to look a little more aesthetic. Now, obviously these aren't the same size, so it's a little ugly. Or maybe we want to duplicate this one, add it here. Boom. Point is, there's a bunch of different things you can do to make your pages look more pretty. And you're going to be using columns, dividers, and all these basic blocks a lot to make things look more aesthetic. A couple of other things that I haven't mentioned yet, you can click on anything and duplicate it or delete it using these 6 dots, which pull up a menu setting, which I talked about. You can turn them into other blocks, but you can duplicate, delete them, add comments, copy the link to the block, or move them to somewhere else. And when you delete content, it goes to your trash, sits there for 30 days, and you can just permanently delete it, or if you ever want to restore it, you can just click on restore. And then there's some settings that you can adjust for your page. Up in the top right, you can do full width, small text. You can lock the page, you can change the font, you can copy the link to the page, you can duplicate it, move it to trash, export it, and a couple other things as well. And then if you go over to your sidebar and go down to the bottom, you can change your settings in Notion. You can change the appearance, light, dark, and some other settings as well. You can just look through these and play around with them, but you're probably not going to be changing many of these very much. Another feature I use a lot is the search feature. There's the hotkey Command P to pull up the search tab. You can search your entire Notion for a page. So if I wanted to type credit cards, you see everything that comes up with credit cards. in my entire Notion. So Command P, pull that up to search. You can also do this when you're not within Notion. So let's say I'm within Spotify and I want to search something, just type Command Shift A is my hotkey, and you can't see this because it's on my other monitor. Search bar comes up and I can type credit cards. I can search my Notion while I'm not within Notion. Click this and it'll open up my Notion for me. So that's another really cool feature. You can set that hotkey up in the settings. Now let's talk about one of the most useful aspects of Notion, and that is templates. So you go over here to templates. In the sidebar, you can see all the templates that other people have made available. Some of them are paid, some of them are free. You can also look up on Google something you want to download, like a habit tracking Notion template or college semester template or something that you want to use, workout tracker. And most of the time something will exist, either free or paid, and you can download it and use it yourself. So to use one of these, you just click on one and click add, and it'll automatically add it to your workspace. And you give it a second to create for you, and then boom, you can see this template is automatically created for you. And you can literally adjust it however you want, or you could even take this and drag it into the Notion page. Now it's within here. Let's say we wanted to just copy this database. Boom, drag this, move to Ryan's Notion, boom. You can see this is in here, boom. So templates are a really, really nice feature. They can help you get started when you don't know what you're doing, or you want to make your page a little more aesthetic. And I think this doesn't actually look too bad. You guys can let me know in the comments how I did. I'm not a designer, but this is all right. So with that, I also have a couple Notion templates I've made myself that I'll leave a link to in the description. It's this one, which is a Life Hub template used to manage your entire life. Pretty similar to one we just made, but it has to-dos, projects, second brain with all your knowledge, and some other things, and Life OS template. And the Life OS template, which uses toggles to store everything, it's also pretty useful. I made videos about both of those. You can find those videos up here. You can find those links to the templates in the description if you want to check them out yourself. Notion also has a mobile app, so you can download the app and open all your pages. Everything will look the same. It'll just be in the mobile form, so you can swipe through everything. I highly suggest downloading the Notion mobile app as well as using it on your desktop so you can access it from anywhere. You can also collaborate with other people within Notion by giving them access to either certain pages or giving them access to your workspace. You can do that using the share button and inviting people to use it with you. If you guys enjoyed, as I mentioned, you can watch this video here about the Notion template that I use to manage my entire life, or you can watch this video that YouTube thinks you'll enjoy. Thanks for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next one.